Hey everybody. So tonight I decided to pick 3 cards. Without going into too much detail or boring you guys or anything else like that, I just let time get away from me. I ended up going back to one of my trusty decks, picking the top 3 cards off of there that I haven't really, I just now read them as I'm looking at them right now. So the first one here is, do you tell yourself you can't do something? Ooh. What is it and why? Geez. Do I tell myself that I can't do something? Yeah, almost daily. I know that daily I will tell myself that this is so terrible. This is absolutely terrible admitting this, but it's true. I often will have moments of self-doubt. I think everybody does. But I will often tell myself I'm incapable of having a great day. And I know that sounds really strange to say that. And now that I say it out loud, it sounds a little nuts, but it's true. I kind of grew up in a family that my mother was a constant worrier, and she still is, and my father was someone that would get overly excited about things, but without unloading a whole bunch of laundry on this, I grew up in an environment where it was never really, I don't know if it's a Hispanic thing or what it is, but you never really got overly excited about anything because inevitably something would go wrong and the whole thing would just turn to crap. And I never really was allowed to be overly joyous for any reason. It wasn't that my family didn't have laughter and didn't have good times. It seemed like there was always this point of reservation. So I think definitively, if I look back, at least in my past, I can honestly say that having too much fun or enjoying myself at anything is something that I still don't really allow myself to do. If there's a second thing that comes up right behind it, it would be almost every single day I tell myself that I am not, as dumb as this sounds, I tell myself I will never measure up to a lot of my colleagues creatively. That a lot of the people I know that I look up to, that I went to school with or that I've known professionally over the years, I often will measure myself up to them creatively and think, wow, I am never going to achieve that at the exact same time. Now, I'm saying that and admitting to that, but I also have learned over the years to kind of flip that script and go back the other way and go, no, I'll be fine. I've just, that's not what I'm supposed to be doing. I should be doing my own artwork, doing my own creative effort out of that. And that usually helps. And I don't know if I can think of a third one. Do you tell yourself you can't do something? What is it and why? I guess if there's a third one to add to that, it would be gambling. I have a horrible gambling addiction. I don't remember if I've gone in depth with this in another video or not, but I have been to Vegas, and this was years ago for the Howard conference, and it was everything I could do to not get out of my hotel room and go and spend money, at the slot machines or thankfully every single blackjack and poker area seemed to be way too rich for my blood. That is something that I tell myself, do you tell yourself you can't do something? What is it and why? It is absolutely gambling. That is something that I would go broke. I love games of chance. I love things like that. And especially when money is on the line, there's just something horribly addictive about that. I don't know if that runs in my family or not. I know my brother loves to gamble too, to a certain degree. I don't believe anyone else does, actually, now that I think about it. Maybe I'm just the one problem kid. I don't know. Second card was, what do you appreciate most about your life right now and why? Everything. I mean, I know it's going to sound stupid, but it's true. This is going to come off very general because I do tend to look at life in generalities. For all the ups and downs that I've gone through in my life, the one thing that I appreciate the most is that I'm still here. Now, that's not to undermine, people in my life that are important, loved ones, that's not that. That's not to say that there isn't certain things that I don't appreciate more than others. But at the center of it all, it's simply the fact that I'm still here. I say that because I've had friends and family that have passed on. I've known people that for one reason or another, even though they're still physically here, they aren't here. Every day that I can wake up and I see the sun, I get chances to be around, you know, people in my family, pet my cats, or get a chance to draw or something like that. Any of that stuff, that's all compacted into life. I've had jobs in the past, and even circumstances where it wasn't necessarily work related. I'd wake up and I was like just angry for some reason. Maybe I didn't get good sleep or I had a bad dream. Something else along the line happened where it was just something I wasn't really looking forward to that day. And I would always forget just how wonderful it was to wake up, to be able to get up of my own accord, maybe a little sore, a little more creaky now that I'm older, but still be able to get up and have chances that a lot of people don't have. It isn't necessarily material things. It isn't necessarily like, oh, I have this amazing toaster and I'm going to go make great toast. It isn't something like that. I mean, really at its heart, like the other day, I was really happy that I had a little bit of extra money and I was finally able to get some bird seed and fill the feeders out back. I love watching birds. I love seeing, the birds that come into the yard, and that's ridiculously relaxing, but also I'm watching life happen there. It's seeing the looks on people's faces as I pass them by, people I've never seen before. It's waking up every day and seeing, another day here for me. I mean, one of the things that we're not ever guaranteed in life is how long life is really going to last for us. That's true of everyone. I think just life in and of itself is what I appreciate the most. It's really hard for me to pick one thing out because I tend to I do celebrate life. It's taken me many years to get to that point because when I was younger, I didn't. When you're in your teenage years and even into your early 20s, most people are like, oh, it's going to be forever, man. It's going to be the best thing. Like, life is so long. And I found out, I think this is probably quoting Chris Rock, people will then say, well, life is really short. Well, and it can be, but life can also be really, really long, especially if you make the wrong decisions. I know that even as I've gotten older, and this is coming from somebody who's a diehard collector, my materialism has started to wane. And there are some things like that I don't want to spend money on, or I don't want to buy more of. It's kind of a weird thing, and that's a discussion for another video. And maybe as a secondary on that would be, I know this is going to sound bizarre because I'm a visual artist, but and this is only in part because I have partial hearing loss in this ear from having worked at bars before I really wore any ear protection. And Jesus, I don't understand why music has to be allowed in a bar, but whatever. To an accident that happened at a Civil War reenactment where I had put too much gunpowder into my Enfield rifle, and while I was aiming and firing course blanks, the report on it was far louder. It just resonated, and it was enough that I thought I had split the barrel or blown it apart or something, and I couldn't hear out of this ear very well for the rest of the event. Pretty sure I've damaged my hearing on this side, on my right hand side, pretty badly. I know at work or other places I have to be careful whenever I'm walking somewhere. It's not like, tinnitus or tinnitus, whatever it is where you hear the ringing. It's nothing like that. I do appreciate the hearing that I do have left, and I'm much more careful with it. And one of the things I carry with me, I don't care if I'm going to a comic convention or anywhere, I always carry ear protection with me now. It's something that I'm just absolutely paranoid of. I want to make sure that for however long I have on this planet, that I leave being able to hear pretty darn well. Okay, and so the final and third one for tonight will be, when you feel bored, where does your brain wander to? Man, this is a loaded one in a lot of good ways, in really good ways, honestly. When I feel bored, okay, first of all, I don't get bored. That's really hard for me to do, and I'm not trying to come off sounding superior or anything. I don't mean it that way. Story time. So when I was a kid, I rarely had friends. I really didn't have a lot of them. I was socially awkward. I didn't know at that point in time that, I was definitely on the spectrum. There was a lot of other things that came into play with this, but I spent a lot of time by myself. really growing up, like things were kind of my friends. I had a Sega Master System. That was the system before the Sega Genesis. And that was kind of my quote unquote best friend. I, would play games on it, and I didn't really have friends that came over. I just was a different kid. I really was. So my imagination was the other thing that kept me going, drawing. And even if I was not drawing on a piece of paper, I would be coming with mental images in my head of certain things, robots flying around, whatever it was. Maybe I do get bored, but I've never really realized it. And usually what happens is that my head will go into, nowadays, I can answer this more clearly with examples today. If I'm somewhere, boredom for me probably goes into the arena of like, okay, well, I have this game idea in my head, so let me start to work through that. Or I will start writing poetry down. Usually whenever I don't have a whole bunch of other things on my mind, and I'm trying not to stress myself out by thinking about negative or overwhelming things, inevitably poetry of some sort of prose starts to come out, and I'll grab my phone and I start working through it. And I've actually written almost all my works that way. The biggest thing I think that also happens is it gives me enough time, I guess, when I'm bored, to bunny rabbit ears, whenever I'm doing that, to slow down and think about other things that I'm doing that I'm not around. So if I have an illustration like sitting on the drawing board here and I'm at work or I'm out and about somewhere, I get the opportunity to be away from it and kind of rethink what I have in front of me visually. One of the other things I tend to do, because I actually don't use a lot of reference whenever I'm doing most of my drawings. I will on occasion, especially if I'm having to make it look like somebody, or there's something in specific I'm trying to copy or replicate. But for the most part, I don't do that. What I will do, and I've done this since I was a kid, is I always called it mental drawing, but like, let's say like, we'll use this Nintendo GameCube controller, okay? What I would do is, I would look at it and I'd hold it and turn it over in my hand and try and commit it to memory. When I'm out and about, if I'm walking through a building or something, I'll look at how light comes in through a window or how a windowsill is built into something. A lot of different things fascinate me like that. Mechanical aspects, architectural things, how nature works, the anatomy on a person or an animal. That sort of stuff fascinates me, and I try and store that. So even when I may be staring off into space, it's really because I'm just thinking about these things and trying to correct them into my head, be able to pull them up, like for reference later. And sometimes for fun, in my sketchbooks or just when I'm practicing, I'll try and remember what something looks like. That's something where, when I was a kid, I kind of became obsessed with stuff like, what is the basic general shape of something? So the long explanation out of the way, I don't think I really get bored. If I do, I usually end up filling it up with other things like I want to learn more and know more. That goes right back to the obsession of kind of like, what do you appreciate most about your life right now? I could easily, contract these two together because I'm glad that I get a chance to learn. I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I am somebody who continually likes to learn things. Always enthused about everything I learn? No, not really. Am I intrigued by everything I try and learn? Yeah, I am. It just doesn't always stick with me. Algebra. Anyway, that was a fairly quick and short, painless video. I hadn't had a chance to come back to these until recently. I wanted to start touching on these because I think these are great little conversation things. I think they also really work good for interview cards. There's actually a company now that makes those. So mad because that was a concept that I was trying to come up with for people that wanted to interview people for podcasts and things. But I did get a chance to read the deck. Questions weren't that great. Honestly, they weren't. I mean, like, even the most terribly written Rolling Stone article had better questions than that deck did. One of them was like, what's your Instagram handle and how long have you been on Instagram? It's kind of, I don't know, that shouldn't be something on a card. If you don't know to ask that, not making fun of it, yes, I am. Aside from that, I haven't been doing a whole hell of a lot of other things. I did get another illustration done. It's this one right here. This one will be at NakaKon. NakaKon's coming up really quickly. This is, of course, my homage to Samurai Jack and Aku. I forgot his name there for a second. I can't believe that. I love the hell out of that show. I love the way it ended, that they finally were able to end it with. And recently they announced a brand new game for all the platforms, including Switch, that takes a 3D kind of take on Samurai Jack, which is really cool. One of the other reasons that this illustration even exists, I know that for a lot of you, you're like, wow, my God, he's doing fan art. Yeah, I am. But I also had got asked more for Samurai Jack than probably any other IP that's out there. Everyone has often noted how much my other illustrations look like it. Yeah, it was a huge influence for me. It's definitely part of that. So I thought, well, I definitely want to do something that, you know, showed some scale, showed some interest, and was, you know, something you might have seen in the show. And I tried not to go back to watch the show. I tried to remember what I could from it without looking anything up. Aku's design is simple, bold, and beautiful, and I wanted to sort of do my own representation on it. I genuinely did not mean to leave out eyeballs in this illustration. They came out looking much better. It fit the overall look. It was more me. I always thought that the fact that he had those tiny little pupils in his eyes in the cartoon made him a little more friendly, and he is truly a pretty polarizing, entertaining, but at the same time demoniac and horrific character that truly is evil. But I understand why they did it. I mean, it definitely has its fan base. It's pretty wide, and the designs of the characters are very bold, and I love that geometric look to them. And they're just a little off kilter, just a little bit jarring, and it's an aesthetic that I've always really loved. I didn't carry a lot of that sort of Cartoon Network-esque sort of look into my current works, but this was one where I thought I can have a little more fun and simplify stuff even further than I normally do. One of the things, as you can see here, the last bits of the design that I started to work in there was like, oh, how cool would it be if like there were some skulls that were kind of in the rocks, you know, as part of the shadows. And that by chance came along only because some of the songs from Venture Brothers came on my computer when I was drawing, and I thought, oh yeah, you know, because Venture Brothers has that skull that shows up in the intro bit, and I thought, oh, that'd be kind of cool to work out the rocks that way, and then put the same sort of texturized digital watercolor on it, and that sort of thing. So hope you guys like it. The first one's already been claimed by my friend Ben Watkins from Brass Engine Studio, so that one's his. It's going to be an edition of 24 really, and they'll be available online and at NakaKon for I believe $30 each. They're 13 by 19, printed on archival paper, archival inks, essentially a giclée, and they'll all be numbered and signed and titled down at the bottom. Thanks for watching, guys. I sincerely appreciate it. I do appreciate everyone that will be coming out to NakaKon. I will be there, of course, all 3 days. I will be there, I believe, Thursday to set up, and I'll be in there early. I will start posting and showing stuff from the show floor as soon as I can. I don't know if I'm going to be going live. I don't know what I'll be doing. Honestly, it just depends on how the show goes. I do plan on staying afterward and getting there as early as I can to get as much footage, as much as I possibly can, to give you guys a really good overview and review of it. And I'm really looking forward to the show. But and I don't think I'll be doing another video until after that weekend. Honestly, I don't. I had planned on vlogging again one more time, but I don't think it's going to happen. I've got way too many things to get ready before then. So never mind getting a bunch of my display ready to go, making sure I have everything together, and figuring out if I'm actually going to do commissions at the show. I still haven't figured that out. If I do, I will be posting that on social media as to how much that's going to be. I haven't figured out what my pricing will be or what I'm actually going to be doing at the show. If you guys want to follow me, again, I will say this because some other people had asked, I am on Twitter at The Artisan Rogue, and you can find me on Facebook and here on YouTube, and basically just if you Google The Artisan Rogue, you can find me. So thanks again, and I will talk to you guys later.